Hello and welcome to Thrive by Arbeit Nexus. Today we are very thrilled to have a special guest joining us. Our guest is someone who is a leading expert in the hospitality industry. I would like you all to welcome Mr. Hemant Bagga, who is an industry veteran in the hospitality sector. Mr. Bagga is a passionate and motivated hotelier with over 30 years of vast experience across diverse geographies. All through his career, he has been part of and led teams from the front to deliver exponential growth. His core strength is to rapidly build teams of highly charged resources who will align to achieve higher organizational goals. He has a deep understanding of operations, finance, human resource, sales in the resort and the food and beverage industry. Currently, he is adding a new dimension to his career in the institutional hospitality management with GITAM University, based out of Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. Also today with me on this show, I have Mr. Darshan Reddy, who is the CEO and founder of Arbeit Nexus. At Arbeit, we are all about connecting businesses with the right talent, and this podcast is part of our endeavor to share knowledge and empower the future of work. We are really excited to dive into today's discussion, and Darshan will take over the session with some engaging questions about this topic. Before that, a very quick about what's in store for this particular podcast. Today's topic is preparing future leaders in the hospitality, innovation, skills, and opportunities for tomorrow's workforce. And in this episode, we'll explore the ever-evolving world of hospitality education and the essential skills that is needed for success in this dynamic industry. We'll also discuss the role of academic institutions in preparing students for the real-world challenges, the integration of technology and innovation in the hospitality sector, and the critical link between education and the industry needs. This conversation will also touch upon the current job market, the career growth, and how platforms such as ours, which is Arbeit Nexus, support hospitality and the retail talent in navigating industry opportunities. Darshan, over to you, and a very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajan. So welcome, Hemant. Welcome to the Thrive by Arbeit Nexus. We are very happy to have you here. Yeah, as Rajan told, 30 years of vast experience in this hospitality industry and also in the academics. I mean, Hemant, can you please tell us about your journey in the hospitality industry and what led you to academia at GITAM University?
Sure. So as you all have been sort of on the point of my experience, I started my journey quite like most hoteliers start. We did a hotel management degree. So that is from IHM Goa. This goes back 33 years, 92. And my career started with getting picked up by ITC on the campus as a management trainee. So I went through ITC hotels for about 13 years. That was really the foundation of my career. Mostly I was in food and beverage, but also an exposure to front office. And post that, I got my first leap into the leisure space by joining Mahindra Holidays. So I started first as a EM, which is basically a deputy to the general manager, and then grew to the position of a general manager. So I handled multiple properties of theirs. But that switchover, moving from business hotels, which is what ITC is quite strong in, towards the leisure space was really a defining moment for me. I sort of found my own space in the leisure segment. And then it was no looking back. So I did about 17 odd years in the leisure space. Back in 21, not quite in the backdrop of COVID. It's just a coincidence that it is like around the time when COVID was happening, but it was really nothing to do with COVID at that point. But GITAM as a university was going through a process of transformation under a new president. And there was this whole shift towards how do we bring about an experience of hospitality on campuses. Now, that is quite path-breaking at that point in time. Very large universities have really thought on those lines in terms of how do we manage a student experience on campuses? How do we manage their dining experience? How do we take care of faculty on campuses? How do we do events on campuses? Mostly what academics do, or mostly what universities do is, whenever they have an event or something, they just put together a collection of, staff like professors, associate professors. They'll sort of assign responsibilities and then they'll pull off the event. But raising a complete hospitality directorate and building a team completely from the industry was very path-breaking at that point in time. We got into it. It was a discovery process for us also. Why was it exciting? In my own mind, I thought that getting into a university would probably give us an opportunity to be able to touch the lives of our future citizens. So, we are now touching students who are eventually, along with their education journey, are going to get an exposure to how the service industry functions, how do we really drive excellence at the workplace, etc. And then when they go out into the real world, having done their academic journey, they're probably better placed to, sort of grow their careers, be a better brand ambassador for the country, for the organization they're going to work with, and that sort of thing. So that really is my transformation and how I find myself into GITAM now.
Oh, that's really inspiring, Hemant. I really like the way from where you started and where you are going right now. I mean, as you said, education is where we can actually transform a lot of people if we provide exactly what is needed to the student.
Yes.
That is one thing which even we believe, and that is why we bought the upskilling part, where we feel like a lot of colleges actually are not focusing on these areas which are required for the companies. Exactly. As you know, what the needs of ITC is totally different, and students actually need that training before they get into any industry, let it be IT, let it be hospitality, retail, anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in your experience, how do you think hospitality as an industry has evolved over years?
Oh, when I go through 33 years, we started from a time when there were very few. You could count the number of 5-star hotels in the country on the fingers of your hand. That was the sort of system we were in when we were born. Every city, for example, the metros of India probably have had 5 or 6 5-star hotels. It was only, let's just for the sake of, it was only the international visitors, for example, people coming from Europe or America or Japan for that matter, in those days, they were the only ones who could afford to stay in a 5-star hotel. So that was really the starting point of what was hotel industry or the 5-star hotel industry in India those days. Restaurants, high street restaurants or fine dine restaurants didn't really exist. You had good restaurants, but then again, that whole experience of a restaurant as a dining experience or as a destination to spend your evening in really didn't exist. So that was a backdrop at which we started off back into the late 80s and early 90s. But now look at the journey that we've come through. We've got it's like every possible brand on the planet is now in India. Individual brands are building sort of market systems out of one city. So you've probably got like a dozen Taj hotels in a city or a dozen Marriotts or things like that. So that's the massive backdrop that's happened. Now that's one part of it. The other transformation that we saw through in these last 3 odd decades was as each and every new industry sort of was born in this country as a business. So let's take, for example, one of the early players was the private airline industry. Another one was, for example, the banking space. Another one was the BPO space. And, the whole bunch of sectors, which today we now classify them all under the ambit of the service sector. So when each of these was born, and they were all sort of, born in cyclical, duration. So every decade or so, we had 1 or 2 of them being born, right? And their first hunting ground for their first set of employees used to be the hotel industry. And the hotel industry, I won't say the attrition, let's just say the hotel industry contributed to the formation, the birth, the formation and the growth of all these service sectors that we've seen in our country ever since the economy opened. So when the economies were opened up back in 91, 92, the historic time, Manmohan Singh and Narasimha Rao Dio and all of that. And that's when India really started to emerge as an economy. This is how the country has grown. And I think the hotel industry per se has played a pivotal role. I mean, most people don't really talk as much as they do about it, but it's played a pivotal role in laying that foundation of people who come with a service mindset. We are here to try and please everyone in front of me. Our way of communicating, our attitude towards the job, our attitude towards, let's just call it the customer or the guest. For us, there is no customer. Everybody was a guest, right? And a lot of airlines followed the same thing. A lot of banks started to do it the same way. Everybody started to go with that same sort of culture ethos, right? So that's really how the hotel industry has evolved in these years.
Yeah, as you said, hospitality has played a very major role in in the economy, to be frank, because it is in India it is the second more it is the second it comes in the second place when it comes to the job providing areas after IT, like where a lot of job opportunities are being coming out from the hospitality itself. And over the years, when it comes to the recruitment, what has changed? Because you have been, as you told, you have been get recruited directly into a ITC, which is a five-star hotel. So what are the changes that you saw in the recruitment part and in the skills of for fresh graduates?
Yes, I would say that on that part, we've probably gone some sort of like a curve. The very beginning, qualification wasn't really the number one criteria when recruitment was happening, because in those days, the number of hotel management colleges, there was no such thing like private hotel management colleges. So it was only the IHM colleges, and similarly, there was only a Foodcraft Institute. So back in the 80s, Foodcraft Institute was a starting point of any kind of a qualification for the hotel industry. Then came the IHM format. So the IHM colleges started to come up, and then the private colleges started to come on board. So in the initial stage, qualification wasn't what the criteria of recruitment was. It was just like, okay, 12th pass or whatever it is, and you got started. Then as the education evolved for hospitality, the industry started to demand that you need to be qualified with those particular, certifications. Let's just call it certifications, whether it is during the culinary courses, or whether it is the food service courses, or it was housekeeping, or whichever other course that was there. But what has happened is, over the years, there has also been a significant change where initially, when a student got into a hotel management course and he did his 3-year degree course or 3-year diploma, whichever way you look at it, the expectation of the student was that I have done a hotel management course, I must start as a manager. But when the industry started to sort of scale, and the industry started to, sort of raise the bar in terms of quality of employee, the kind of skills that you want right at the grassroots level onwards. So when the industry started looking at a 3-year diploma pass out at entry level, there was a lot of, there was a lot of disillusionment that set in. So there was this whole thing of, how could I have done a 3-year hotel management course and land up being a steward, or land up being a commie chef, or land up being a room attendant? So the industry went through that reverse cycle, where suddenly people were beginning to question that despite this whole education of mine, how can I be doing such a grassroots level startup? So that became some sort of a dissonance that has taken place. So today, what is happening is that because the industry has splintered, food and beverage sector has exploded, the number of brands has exploded, the number of hotels has exploded, and then the whole advent of retail, and then the whole phenomenon of increased consumer spending has kind of exploded in our country. Service sector companies, even though they are tech companies like Amazon, Flipkart, everybody now needs service-driven people. Somehow it's kind of boding well overall for the industry. People, even though they're getting a hotel management qualification or they're getting a hotel qualification, they're not getting themselves restricted to having to only make a start at grassroots level in the hotel. So they see a lot of opportunities. They see a possibility that if not this, then that. They have a situation of choice, and the younger the generation is getting, the more and more tech friendly they're getting. And when they see that, okay, they can join a company, or they can join a sector or an industry which has a great deal of technology, but is also built upon the ethos of service, and a hotel management qualification can fit in there, it's kind of working out. So I see it all splintering out quite a lot.
Okay, because you spoke about the tech also. Can you tell us what are your thoughts on the rise of tech-driven guest experiences?
So it's like this, when we started off, for example, we've started obviously life from a time when we were still on DOS computers. Windows was still on a start, right? So we've started from those days. We were still on DOS, and we had that cursor blinking on the screen, etc. We had a green color screen and all. So over the years, the first advent of tech was when we were looking at, okay, we have to have a property management system, something that can ease the process of check-in, check-out, account the billing processes, a point of sale. So you got now multiple restaurants. How can you bring all your billing together? So we are talking now at that nascent state of tech, right? From there, it started to move. Technology started to get into things like how do you ease the check-in experience, the access to the room. So for example, key cards didn't exist. At a time, the world didn't have key cards. So the key card was born at some point in time. That was itself considered a big deal. Telephone, you were still on the trunk call system. You had to book a call with an operator. It came to the point that you could now, dial in and dial out directly. So all of these have been the advent of tech. Now that's at the time where most young generation can't even imagine it. But then came sort of, disruptive sort of aspects to it, how the process of restaurant ordering went, how the process of analytics went in terms of understanding guest preferences. And then we've got a computer that's sitting and figuring out guest experience, guest likes, guest dislikes, the process of creating a CRM, process of, mining all of that data in terms of creating trends, and how it's then going to help you to develop your strategies of how are you going to set your business stronger, or what are the aspects of your business that you're strong in or you're weak in, what do you need to focus upon. So there's a whole lot of aspect of tech that has evolved over these last several years. As a consumer, you go to a restaurant, okay, you have a QR code, you can start ordering. That's one aspect of it. Tech is helping you get to the brands, whether it's the social media or through your Google Maps, etc. That's another. Those are all front-facing, very small aspects of tech. They're very visual in nature. But the quantum of work that's happening in the back end and how it's helping the business owner or the business marketeers or the business operators do their business that much better, predict their volumes that much better, predict their and develop strategies or tactics that much better. That's really the aspect of tech that is actually meaningful in nature.
Yeah, when we talk about the disruption, recently I had visited Singapore. We had an investor meeting over there. So when we had visited over there, I saw a lot of innovations coming out in Singapore. When we talk about the hospitality sector, because there are less staff in Singapore, they are actually, they're actually getting the robotics, where a robot will cook. It behaves like a chef. It will serve. It will do each and everything. That is how the world market is actually moving ahead when we talk about hospitality. I think people need to be more adaptable in that aspect, and gain a lot of skills and be ahead of all the things is what I actually feel. And what are the challenges do students face in finding their first job, and how can industry partnerships help ease the transition?
Yes, I mean, this is something which is actually now getting about. And I think whilst it always existed, because attrition from the hotel industry, let us say, I'm just now talking of within the hotel industry, attrition out of it, although everything is sort of in the hospitality space or the service space. One of the challenges that the hotel industry kept facing over the decades, and as new brands or new disruptive businesses started to come in who were poaching out of the industry, was that the hotel industry was always considered to be a pretty harsh work environment.
Yeah.
The kind of hours that go into it, the kind of hard work that goes into it, and somehow there was this whole thing that the quantum of work I put in vis-a-vis the returns is not commensurate. So for the amount of hours and the hard work I'm putting in, I'm not getting paid adequately enough. So that's always been one of the sort of aspects that kind of influenced how the recruitment in the hotel industry has gone. It wasn't found as attractive at a certain point in time. There were times where hotel industry jobs were the best place to be, because it was a place where you did your course, you got a job. Most other or many other courses, just doing your course wasn't enough. It didn't make you job ready. Hotel industry course, fortunately, you did your course, you got a job. But what happened is, I would imagine that whilst this has been a problem probably being seen, or one of the challenges or one of the headache points or concern areas for the hotel industry the last 2-3 decades, what changed was the pandemic. The youth, for example, they got the time to sit back and recalibrate and reprioritize their life. And they started to realize that no, life is not all about just, slumming it out, slogging it out and all of that. They realize that I need my space, I need my time, I need to think a little bit about myself, etc. Now that has brought a lot of shift in the way people are approaching hotel industry jobs, right? And what's now the thought process that the hotel industry needs to understand? They've still not figured it. There are some brands which are beginning to kind of, think on aspects like work-life balance, etc. But they've still not sort of got the fix to it yet. Because unfortunately, the hotel industry thrives essentially when everybody else is at leisure.
Yeah.
When is the hotel at its fullest? When it's a holiday for everybody else. When are you the busiest? When it's a time to relax for everybody else. And unfortunately, that's the time for example, if I'm an employee of the hotel, it's also the time for me when I should want to enjoy, probably the evening out or something. But the hotel industry is pretty harsh in that sense. But how are we going to balance it out? You will need tech to become more efficient in the way you use people. You will need tech also to help you in terms of optimize people and their efforts that they put in. But of course, there's only that much that a machine can do. Eventually, the experience of a diner can only happen by a man who's going to deliver it out there, a man or a lady who's going to deliver it out there on the table or in the hotel, in the various aspects of a hotel, etc. But having said that, we will need to revisit priorities and match them down to employee expectations and employee aspirations. Work-life balance is going to be one of the most essential aspects. It is going to be a paradigm shift. Old world hoteliers will have to rethink how this whole thing happens. We will have to look at it that generations are changing. Expectations of the youth are very different, and we can't try to fit them into our way of thinking. What we were okay with 10 years or 20 or 30 years back. We will have to understand that social changes are happening, and it's now the challenge is back on us to accept those and then, devise things accordingly.
Yeah, we see these changes, the transitions happening. When I talk to a lot of people who are from the hotel industry, from the restaurant industry, I actually ask them, like, they keep on telling that, this is a kind of shift that is happening and we need to cope up for all those things. And also, Hemant, there is a saying like, for restaurant industry is like a declining business. So why is that thing called declining business, and what are the employers supposed to do to stay ahead and always keep their business live in the market?
I really don't know where this statement would have come from in terms of hotel, the restaurant business is a declining business, because I think food consumption is ever on the rise. There are some disruptions within the food business in the sense of the online home delivery. So, for example, a restaurant from the earlier days, if a restaurant existed on 100% people coming into the restaurant and sitting down and having a meal, and then there was a 10% business where every restaurant had their menu card for parcel orders and all of that, and at homes we had all the menu cards of so many restaurants at home, and we used to pick out one of them and then order from there, and the guy would come over and deliver it, etc. From that point to where we are today, where cloud kitchens. So what a cloud kitchen is essentially nobody sitting there and eating at all. Yeah. They're just going on cooking, and there's a whole process only delivering. But I wouldn't say that the restaurant industry is sort of declining. I would just say that it's kind of splintering out. The food exists. Food cannot go, because every human being, and we are ever growing, right? We are not declining as a population. Human being is not declining. So as long as we are going on growing, and every human needs to go through 3 meals a day, there's no way that food is going out of fashion anytime now. And if food is not going to go out of fashion, and
so when I actually talk about declining, it's like if a restaurant is in a certain place where they are actually getting 100% volume of people out there, and as we actually move along, there are a lot of restaurants coming across that particular restaurant, and people start spreading. The same 100% volume will not be visiting the same restaurant. It's like yes. It starts reducing as per let it be 75%, next 60%, something like that. So I'm asking, how will that particular restaurant will start doing something innovative or doing something to keep their customers in line and keep the business live?
Right. So you're pointing towards competition.
Exactly.
So there's more and more competition coming into the marketplace. So how does a particular business manage to stay ahead of it? So I think the fundamentals can never be ignored. But the food business has always sort of had a fundamental that you have to have great food. So there's really no question about that. You have to have great food. Your price point has to be very attractive in the sense that it matches perfectly. You have to achieve the balance between the quality and the pricing. So you have to get into that space. And then, of course, your immediate marketplace, your immediate consumer is having the propensity to map up to exactly what you have intended out in your price point. But there is no taking away from the fact that great food is the only starting point to a successful F&B business. Now, within that, competition is always going to be there. You'll never ever come to a situation where there is no competition, and it's going to always keep growing. Fortunately, consumption is also constantly growing. And as I was just about to close my previous point, where more and more people who are working, they are busy with their lives in terms of their jobs, etc. More and more is the need to eat out or eat in rather than cooking your own meal. So that's been the big shift that's happened in India over the last 30, 40, 50 years. There are lesser and lesser people cooking all meals at home. More and more people are preferring good number of meals made by somebody else. Now, whether you're having it at the restaurant or you're bringing it in, whichever way, but basically cooked by somebody else for you, right? I think great food is probably the only thing. Behind that, a great delivery experience. Now, it need not necessarily be a full service restaurant. Whatever your model of service be, whether it's just a takeaway, it's just a quick sort of a QSR format where, okay, this is it, you stand at the counter, you pay, order, pay, take, go. Or it is a full service restaurant where, okay, it's the whole evening is an experience for you, or the whole event is an experience for you. But I think the fundamentals are always going to be like that.
Yeah, true. I think this will be more informative for the employers out there who are watching this. I think it will make them understand where to focus on. And even how can academia and platforms like Arbeit Nexus collaborate to ensure students have access to best opportunities?
So I think what is going to be the most important aspect, and I think it's not just about the hospitality industry, because I'm here at GITAM and we've got 23 schools. So there's multiple other academic, curriculums that are ongoing. And I'm kind of not just seeing it from a hospitality standpoint. I'm seeing it from engineering. I'm seeing it from pharmacy. I'm seeing it from architecture, law, etc., medical school, etc. It's all about how are we going to be able to build the curriculum which is very industry ready, and it's kind of addressing the need of the future life, which means your life out in your workplace. How do we bring those aspects into your curriculum today? A whole segment of people is constantly questioning that, why am I studying this when I'm never going to use it in the rest of my life? So this is one of those arguments which is constantly ongoing. And there's always going to be an argument to it. There's always going to be somebody who says, okay, that's the fundamental, you need to know the fundamentals. And somebody will say, but you don't really have to study what you're never going to use for the rest of your life. That's always going to be an argument out there. But we have to have industry players constantly work together with academics, companies such as y'all, who are out there. Y'all are collecting data. Y'all are actually bridging the gap between institutions, both sides of the fence, whether it's academic, whether it's the industry, and then of course the job seekers. So y'all are playing a great role in terms of that bridge between everybody. And then it's that collection of data which then gets analyzed and gives us the pointers that what is it that the aspirant of the job, the industry, and then the academic, what is it that we need to actually, that sweet spot of those skills or attributes that we need to infuse into a future employee or a future citizen. So that's really that sweet spot that we need to discover. And I think y'all are going to play a very, very pivotal role in collecting that whole data, and everybody's aspects, and, and make it a kind of a learning which can be consumed, imbibed, consumed, and implemented.
Yeah, I the same thing. Arbeit Nexus our main goal is actually to showcase the opportunities to every nook and corner of the country. There's a lot of people. When we talk about colleges, we have a lot of government colleges. A lot of colleges, they won't even get the the campus selections.
Yes.
Where we actually collaborate with them and showcase the opportunities and help them get the opportunities out there. If at all they're not getting any skilled training, also we are Arbeit Nexus is here to provide all those things by partnering with the major institutions out there in the world. We are actually partnering with EHL, a lot of universities, and we are doing a great work out here. For the betterment and to get a very big impact in India, and for the betterment of the students and any individuals who want to work. Because I think it's very important right now for everyone to focus on the skills, which is very important for the companies, and focus on the growth. I think hospitality and retail is one industry where the future is all over here. It's a lot of growth out here.
Tremendous.
So Hemant, it was very good meeting you. It was very good. A lot of knowledge shared over here. I think this will help out a lot of viewers who are job seekers and the employers. And thank you for joining us. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we come to the end of a very engaging session with Mr. Hemant Bagga. And thank you, Darshan, so much. We had a great time talking to you, sir, and learning and understanding so many things in our session today. We will be back with yet another industry leader with another interesting topic. So stay tuned, guys, and visit our Thrive by Arbeit Nexus YouTube, Spotify channels, and also our Arbeit Nexus website to know more. Here's us signing off from Arbeit Nexus. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye.